What happens when law, business, and life collide? Each week on Lead Counsel, your host Tom Tona will take a deep dive into topics related to the law, the business of law, and life. There will be insightful discussions with industry insiders, experts, and thought leaders making significant contributions and meaningful differences in their fields of expertise. Tom is the founder and managing attorney at TonaLaw. He has been a practicing attorney since 1994 and the leader of TonaLaw since it opened in 2001. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with free information on law and the business of law, and to give you actionable tools related to each of these areas. Now, here's Tom.
All right. Welcome back to the Lead Counsel podcast. It's your host, Tom Tona. I'm here with Juliet. Jules, what's going on?
Nothing much. Welcome back to Lead Counsel, everybody.
And today's guest is Brian Glass. Brian's a friend of mine. We've met on LinkedIn. I've been to the Great Legal Marketing Summit. And I just started talking to you offline, Brian. What's going on, man? First, let me say hello.
Man, I'm amazing. It's a wonderful early June Friday afternoon here in Virginia. And like I was just telling you, just finally got a policy limit offer. I'm ready to leave my office as soon as we're done recording this.
I love that. So we'll make it quick and dirty. I know you like to do like a half an hour podcast. I'll give you as much time as you want, but yeah, I love that. So let's start out with, first and foremost, you're a personal injury lawyer in Virginia. What's the name of the practice?
So the name of the practice is Ben Glass Law.
Awesome. And Ben is your dad.
Mm-hmm.
He's the OG in the great legal marketing space. Great guy. I'm really happy to see his recovery on social media from his heart surgery. Wish him the best. Please tell him I said I wish him the best. So now you're the president of Great Legal Marketing. You've taken that over, yeah?
Right.
Awesome. And I did not know this about you. So the first thing was in 2022, you got the largest auto accident verdict in Virginia?
Yeah.
Man, you holding out. You're too humble. Talk to me about it, man.
Listen, so there's, you know this, there's good marketers and there's good trial lawyers, and rarely does the Venn diagram overlap. But I had the largest personal injury, maybe not the largest personal injury, because I think there was a shooting case that was worth more than mine. But I had the largest auto accident verdict in the state in 2022. And, kind of the fun fact that I always pin on to the back end of that is that we started trial on the exact same day, on the exact same floor as the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. And,
so that overshadowed everything.
But not at the beginning, because that trial took a while to ramp up and to become, national news. But, I turn around during my closing argument. I got my whole team back there. I'm like, yeah, they're here to support me. No.
That's awesome. Are you allowed to say what the size of that verdict was?
Yeah, it was a $4.2 million verdict.
Nice.
It was a drunk driving case where the drunk driver crossed the double yellow line, smashed my client head on. $1 million of that was punitive damages, which, as far as we can tell, is a record in Virginia. And listen, I had a client who was catastrophically injured and a recalcitrant defendant, so that makes for big numbers.
Right. I will tell you, man, I got to give you props for that, because I know how hard it is to do both. And I'm going to say it publicly. I haven't tried a case in decades at this point. I don't even call myself a trial lawyer anymore, but I have a trial law firm. I have lawyers that I am only hiring trial lawyers now. So, but the most important part of that whole story is you made it home to coach your son's soccer team of 10-year-old soccer players. I mean, you literally did it all in one day. It's amazing.
That's right. I think the jury came back at like 2:00. We wrapped up, took the suit off, and okay, hey, we don't have to cancel soccer practice. So, and that's Tom. That's you know this because we go back a little bit, but that's what I live for. Is my fall and my spring, Monday through Thursdays, are blocked at 4:00. I'm out of the office and I'm on a field somewhere. My 11-year-old plays travel soccer. I'm coaching that team. My 9-year-old plays kid pitch baseball. I assistant coach on that team because baseball dads are kind of next level. And I was not a baseball player for much past the age of 13. But I love being out there with little kids and tweaking one little thing, and then the next at bat he gets a hit. So that's really my happy place.
I mean, what's awesome though is, we do know each other now, and what's awesome is the message that you give to other lawyers. And I think it's one of intention, right? Are you living the life that you are proud to live for you, your loved ones? And I know, a lot of this is kind of the messaging that, your dad has been for decades kind of drilling into lawyers' heads. And so you've got this like specialty niche where you're like, hey, law school probably caused a lot of damage. I'm here to help you undo the damage, right? And you can ring the bell at $4 million. It's pretty. That's 4.4 million. That's a pretty awesome story, man.
Now, to be fair, I'm not sure I've been back in a courtroom since that trial.
All right, I'm going to congratulate you. Look. I always tell people there are lawyers that love trying cases. If you love doing it, and I've heard you say the same thing, good on you. Just get yourself a COO. Get yourself the business end of it so you could still live the life you want to be. Maybe you're the guy that like the matador, right? You come in, you slay the bull, you throw the cape on the ground, they fold your cape, and you're off into the wind for a day or two or a week or whatever it is. So you don't really tell people what to fall into. It's more a message of intentionality, right?
I think that's really the challenge of being a younger lawyer, and especially like if you go and you hang a shingle, is you look around at what everybody is doing and you assume that everybody is doing everything, right? You assume that everybody is a great trial lawyer and is having 3 networking lunches a week and is on TikTok and Instagram and creating YouTube videos and also, giving talks at conferences and doing pro bono work. And it's just not true. Right. And so the message, which is really, really hard to internalize, and I struggle with it sometimes, is like, man, if you could just pick the 2 or 3 things that you love doing and you could build a business around that, you can be really happy and you can make a lot of money doing it. But it's what we call shiny object syndrome is like, and social media has made it worse because you can see all of the things that everybody else is doing, and you don't have to do all of those things. You don't have to do any of those things, but you do have to pick something to be good at if you want to run your own law firm.
Right. And I think that, so there's more layers to that story though, too, because not just anybody can ring the bell for $4.5 million. Right. So I think that there's a certain special niche you can occupy where if you have developed that expertise, it's easier than you transition into the business piece, and you now know the groundwork for all the systems that now allow you to cookie cutter the process that got you the $4.5 million. That's kind of similar to my story. I just stopped trying cases 25 years ago or 20 years ago. I tried a bunch of cases, but I knew how to try the cases and I knew the end game. So I can build all my systems around it and then say to the trial lawyers that love trying cases, come on in, I'll bring in the business. I just don't want to try the cases anymore, right? So I love that story, and I'm glad we were able to highlight it, and I also didn't know that about you, so I thought that was awesome.
And listen, for every $4 million verdict, I've got 3 $10,000 verdicts. So.
Right, but anybody's tried cases know that's how you get there, right? You got to try the little ones. I have the same story. So it must have felt pretty good that night when you went home and rang that bell. You had to feel good.
It was great, man. It's like, and this was after COVID, and this is so the story of that case was a drunk driving charge, and the conviction actually took almost as long as the civil case did because the arresting officer was deployed, and then some evidence got lost. Like that case dragged forever. And really what this woman wanted was just her day in court, and she just wanted a jury to tell her what the case was worth and I think she wanted to face the defendant and say, look, this is what you did to me. Right. And so that was just full circle, like everything you could want from the justice system in terms of monetary value, in terms of a feeling of justice, in terms of, to the defense lawyer's credit, like the kind of case that was well tried on both sides.
Right.
Where you fight about the things that you need to fight about and you don't fight about the things that you don't. It was a good case and a good note to kind of go out on. If that's the last jury trial I ever try, I don't know. So today I want to be involved in high level strategy, but I don't want to get bogged down into evidence. Like the details.
And I'm the same way.
My strength.
But you're an entrepreneur. So a lot of times you got that shiny object syndrome and it's not your strength. And a lot of times if you channel that, I'll use it in context of me, that undiagnosed ADHD as a superpower, the same things that make you strong as an entrepreneur, it could be detrimental on the minutia side or the detail side, because the devil is in the details with trial work. So I completely, resonate with what you're saying. So talk to me though. You get home to coach your son's soccer game that night. You got to be riding on a high. How do you balance? You're running a law firm. You're the president of GLM now. Your son's coaches, and how do you balance all of it? Like, what's the key for you?
Well, I mean, the key calendar wise is to block it out, right? So, one of the concepts that I block after 4:00 so that I have that time to myself. I also block every Thursday morning. I go to a coffee shop and spend time completely analog, no digital, handwritten notes and a journal. Like, hey, what's the next thing that we can work on? So finding that quiet space that's outside of the pinging email box and all of that is really important to get your thoughts in order. And then one of the things that I've tried to get a whole lot better at this year is delegation, right? And delegation is something that I've struggled with because I can always do it better and faster and quicker, but I can only, do so many things in a day, right? So I've gotten better this year at defining exactly what I want done, when I need it done, and then coming back and keeping a tight feedback loop to make all of that stuff happen. It's funny because you ask, how do you balance it? And I honestly, I don't know how to teach it. It's like just kind of what I grew up with, right? My dad, I was the oldest of 9. And at one point he was managing his own law firm with no other lawyers and coaching 3 youth soccer teams. So that's just my normal, right? So I don't have a lot of great advice on that, except that it just has to be intentional. Like, if you want to know your priorities, look at where you spend your money and look at your calendar. But don't tell me that family is important to you if you're working 15-hour days and you're never making it to kids' sports games.
Yeah, the one thing I challenge even everybody in my organization on is when they say, I don't have time. And I'm like, you don't have time, you make time. And if it's important, you make the time, right? But again, that's, that comes from being 55 and going through those iterations of doing too much. And, I think in the beginning when you were talking about the young lawyers and they would see all these shiny things, et cetera, I also think it's a financial capacity thing, right? Like although today delegation, I think, is easier than ever with outsourcing, right? So the financial argument may go away.
Financial capacity and financial need. Like, it's a lot easier to say things like, I'm blocking my calendar after 4:00 when you're doing okay financially, right? If you're struggling to make ends meet, you get a little bit of grace for working 15-hour days, and that is taking care of your family, right? And so this is the other thing about, looking around and thinking, okay, and comparing yourself to what everybody else is doing, is that guys like you and I say things like that, and you're just kind of in a different atmosphere than you were when you were 31,
Yes. Yeah.
So,
I agree. And sorry, Jules, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, on the outside looking in, it would seem that you're one of those lawyers who does it all, right? So to backtrack a little bit, you said every lawyer needs to pick like the 2 to 3 things that they're really good at or that they want to spend their time doing. So what would you say are the 2 to 3 things that you really like picked and dived deep into?
Well, one of them is making it look like I'm doing everything.
You do
there
pretty well.
Go.
So that's a great question. And I know that you guys run on EOS and there's that whole delegate and elevate concept. And so the things for me that I get really excited about and I'm really good at are frankly doing law firm sales. Like, I'm really good at intake and closing a client and getting them to trust us with their case. And I'm really good at high level strategy about, asking 3 questions of whoever's handling the case and then being able to figure out, here's the next thing that you should go and do. And so then, the converse of that is like, what do I not like doing? I hate spending time in depositions, defending depositions or answering discovery or even really going through medical records and things like that. And so operationally in the law firm, if I can spend all of my time on the front end, signing new clients and keeping clients happy and crafting strategy, then those are my 2 or 3 things.
That's awesome. And knowing yourself is the key, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you get so self-aware? Because I'd love the younger attorneys and Jules to hear the self-awareness key to me is so essential, right? And so like, how old are you? You're a young guy. I mean, you're not 55.
40.
Okay. So you're middle-aged like me. I'll say that. All right. You're approaching middle age, but the journey to self-awareness is kind of individual for everybody. Like, do you mind sharing that journey of how you got so self-aware?
I have a running voice in the back of my head telling me I'm not good enough.
There you go. That'll do it every time.
That voice helps. But coaching. So I've been working with a personal and professional coach for the last 5 years, and mastermind groups. I'm in a lawyer, obviously Great Legal Marketing is a legal mastermind group. But I'm in a mastermind group with a bunch of entrepreneurial men, and we meet every Tuesday night. My little group talks every Tuesday night, and you develop and you hone this great sense of self-awareness, getting feedback on, hey, here's what I think my goals are. Well, Brian, I think that's really not aligned with what you just told me about what you want to accomplish in life. Like, why are you chasing down these things? And so I think those things help. Like having a coach is really helpful. I also, man, I am deep into personal development books and podcasts.
Yeah.
And which, coupled with the voice in the back of your head that tells you you're not good enough.
Yeah, man. But you know what? There's a lot to that. Exactly what you're saying is a lot to it. Yeah. My last guest on the show was a therapist. It was out last week. We were doing Mental Health Awareness Month, and I had that same epiphany. I'm adopted, and I was like, oh, that's what's been driving me. I still don't feel good enough, even at 55, with everything I accomplished. But it's funny because it is also a evolution, right? Like I was like, I don't think I've ever felt as comfortable in my skin of who I am until 55, right? Because there's iterations. But you also recognize that in people too, right? Like you can have a conversation and go, oh, that person's really comfortable in their skin. They know who they are. So I think that that's an interesting thing. And conversely, you also know when people aren't, no matter how old they are. And so it's interesting. You mentioned something I've heard you say either on LinkedIn or on another podcast, the benefits of outsourcing tasks to focus on higher level customer service. And man, I love that. I love that because a client-centered law firm is a top-tier law firm. And people would say, oh, that's something that I'm never going to pay attention to. It's one of my top priorities. And I love that. So you want to discuss the right way to approach outsourcing to free you up and why the focus on, customer service is so important.
Yeah. So let me start with that. The focus on customer service. It is really hard to compete in the market on I am the best lawyer, because how the hell does anybody ever know? Right. And so I don't compete on that. I compete on, you're going to have the best client service experience with my firm than you have not only with any law firm, but with any business that you come into contact with. And we do that in a couple of different ways. Number one is automation. So even before the outsourcing is automation. So we use Lead Docket and Case Peer and Hona to do 3 different things. Like Lead Docket makes sure we know where the case is coming from, and really quickly we're getting back to anybody that calls or fills out a web form. Because the number one thing in a personal injury firm is getting back to somebody really, really quickly and moving them to the next step, whether that's I can help you or I can't help you or I need some more information. And then with Case Peer, we've got our whole case map or case plan planned out. So any auto accident case that comes through the office, listen, yes, every case is a little bit different, but they all pretty much rhyme, right? And so the processes are going to be exactly the same. And so now, rather than having a paralegal or an assistant who's got to remember all of the things that happen in any given case, right? They just get tasks, and either you do them or you don't do them. And we have accountability around how long did it take for those things to get done, or did they not get done? And then the third one is Hona. I don't know if you guys use that, but they describe themselves as
We've looked at it. Yeah, we've looked at it. Yeah.
So they describe themselves as Domino's Pizza Tracker for your legal case. Every time your case moves to a next stage, the client gets a little push notification with a message from you about what happens in the demand stage, and with frequently asked questions and things like that. And I met Matt McClellan, who's one of the founders of that company, down at National Trial Lawyers a couple of years ago. And I was doing this anyway. I had shot these videos of like, here's what happens in a demand stage. Now we're negotiating your case. Here's what to expect next. And we'd uploaded them to Vimeo, and we were texting them manually to clients. So I'm like, all right, this is cool. And so what those three things do is now we have standardized the operations in the case. And the last one, the Hona, is in addition. It is not a replacement of your team reaching out and saying, here's what's going on in the case, but it is another place for them to look. Because listen, it's stressful when a lawyer calls you about your case to tell you what's going on, and you don't internalize everything that they said, right? And so having a FAQ page and having a set of videos that they can go back and look at after we get off the call, that makes sense. That reduces the number of calls that come back, and it reduces the number of questions that are coming back. The other piece that you asked about is outsourcing. So we outsource all of our medical records collection now to the Philippines. That's all done overseas. And I outsource my my social media and my YouTube video production to the Philippines. We have a guy that does that for us. And all of that is like, man, this is going to be a really American-centric thing to say, but I'll say it. You know that when you hire somebody at an entry-level position at the law firm, whether it's administration or front desk reception, the goal is to be a paralegal. And many paralegals, the goal is to be a lawyer. And many lawyers, the goal is to be
a partner.
Right. You don't really have that in other parts of the world. And so the person who is collecting the medical records is like really psyched to be collecting medical records. It is hard to get an American really excited to pick up the phone and get some medical records to show up. And so that's just one of the things that we learned along this journey, is that there are people for whom there's an arbitrage. Like, we're paying them less than we'd be paying an American to do it. And it is an off the charts salary for them in their part of
Yes. And we're doing it in the Philippines too. We were in India. But again, I just think it's interesting, the similarities that we're talking about, because I literally was in a meeting and we're like, look, we use a push button third party for medical records. It never works the same as if it's in-house, but those positions have gone away. No one is psyched about doing medical records internally in the US. And so since COVID, those entry-level positions have really gone away. That's what I've found, right? So other than if you are paying very high end for the level of work that you're talking about. Let's switch gears now for Great Legal Marketing, because I've been familiar with the organization. It's been around forever. Your dad was the founder, right?
Yes.
And he still plays a big role in it. I know he's speaking a lot or whatever, but now you're the president. Well, first of all, I got to ask the question. My father's no longer with me, and I look at you all the time, and I'm like, man, it must be awesome. Is it as awesome as it looks on the outside to say you're working with your dad, or are there challenges to it?
There's challenges. So I mean, my history is the first 10 years of my career I spent working at another firm across town, because I wanted to make my own friends and my own reputation, my own way of doing things. And so when I joined his firm in 2019, we sat down and we had many conversations before we joined that were like, well, what if we do this and it sucks? Like, what if we do this and we hate it? And that hasn't been the case. It's truly a family business. So my wife does our HR. My mom does our bookkeeping and has done the bookkeeping for 25 years or so for the law firm. We have 20 other employees who are not related, or 14 other employees who are not related to us. So I don't want to give you that illusion that it's just us.
Right.
But it's, one of the things that has served us really well is that we are good at self-awareness and staying in our lane. So when I came into the practice, I took over the personal injury section. He operates our ERISA long-term disability section. And, the only overlap is hey, I've got this brief. Can you read it and see if you have any suggestions? Or, hey, we're looking at this case. Like, tell me if you think this argument is ridiculous. And we really don't step on each other's toes in that regard. And then great legal marketing is the same thing. Listen, we both want the same thing. Like, what really excites us is the coaching and the teaching portion of it. And we love taking lawyers who are kind of struggling to find their way in the woods and help them get closer to having this high profit, low maintenance law firm that everybody dreams of. But more importantly than that is like the kind of place where you don't look forward to Friday afternoons and you don't dread showing up in the office on Monday morning.
Right.
And that's kind of an amorphous thing to be selling, right? Because I'm not selling. I'll get you to 7 figures. I'll give you to 8 figures. I'll make you the CEO. I'll help you craft a place where you're happy to show up, right?
Right.
And so we're both aligned on that goal. We really, are there times where we're frustrated with each other? Sure, but that's in any business.
Yeah.
But we've been really lucky to stay in our own lane and have a similar goal, and we're running EOS. He's the visionary in both businesses. I'm the integrator in both businesses. And if you don't have alignment with the person who's doing that, it's not going to work.
It's a big deal.
We just
Yeah.
happen to.
I think it's awesome. And I think that, again, it comes down to knowing yourself, knowing each other. Healthy boundaries are huge. And I will give you props. I owe you a thank you. You put something out on social media. You're a big proponent of before you throw more money at marketing, fix your intake, right? Mm-hmm. So I remember the aha moment. I think I saw you on LinkedIn put a video up. I watched it and I was like, I got to go back and I studied my intake. I made a couple of modifications. My intakes went up 33%. I was like, there's always something this old dog can learn, man. I could always learn. Like I love that. I love that. And you didn't spend another marketing dollar and you probably didn't hire anybody else. I was always afraid or fear of saying I'm going to hire an intake person, right? So I had my paras, I have a pool set, and I got over that fear after listening to you talk about intake and the importance of dedicated intake. Actually, I hired your company for intake training. We hired Great Legal Marketing to train my intake team, and so it's had a great impact. It really has had a great impact.
Our intake person has like smoothed out so much, and now
she's a machine.
Closely together to just track all of it, and it's works.
She's a machine.
I can't even imagine what it not having one again.
Yeah, it's hard to picture what it was, and that I was afraid of it. Like it's crazy, but you got me over the hump really quick. It's crazy.
I love that story, and so I'm really big on knowing your numbers, and I think in intake, the most important numbers are. Of the people that are calling, how many of those cases do we want? And how do we define that, right? In a way that Tom doesn't have to go in and track it. How do I draw the box so that whoever is doing the intake can say, this one is squarely in the box, this one is outside. Okay, these 10% of cases I need to go ask a lawyer about, right? So how many of those cases that are calling do you actually want? And then of those that you want, how many are you getting? How many are signing a retainer for you?
Right.
And my view is a healthy amount is 75 to 80% of the ones that you want, you should be getting. Now, here's the ghost in that number is how many people are calling your law firm or filling out a form on your website and you can never get back in touch with them because you didn't have a dedicated intake person.
Right.
That's the number of cases you don't even know you're missing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you just do the math on that, and what's my average fee value?
Pays for itself.
Pays for themselves.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, 100%. After hiring your company, that was the first thing we did was the math. They were like, okay, how many did you want? How many did you get? How many did dropped off the map? And all you need to figure out is if you're losing 1 or 2 cases a month, and for every personal injury firm out there, you are. Let me just tell you right now, you are. And so if your average fee per file is $10,000, that's 20 grand a month, is 250 grand. Of course it pays for itself. So, hard-headed Italian, you had to walk me through the math. You did the math with me and it was an easy decision, right? It was just an easy decision after that.
And I think you're doing this, but I'm a big proponent of having that person be in-house, because I like, if the phone rings and it's a good case, that they can run screaming down the hallway to get a lawyer on the phone with somebody if they need to. Right?
Yeah. So it's funny. We found an amazing intake person. She's out of, I think she lives in Jersey now. She was in Pennsylvania. She's been up 4 times, but she has massive law firm experience at a big PI shop. She's an assassin. I have never seen somebody sign cases so fast, so furiously as this woman. So, and she's just an amazing asset to the firm. And I've been told that as we're scaling now the marketing, because that's what it allows me to do, is scale the marketing now, is add a second one that she can train and manage, because she's so good. She's so good.
What do you think makes her so good?
Her personality profile. She's got a born sales profile. Like I use predictive index now, but using the DISC vernacular, she is a high I with a high attention to detail, and the D and the S are like right at the midline. So she's kind of like that superstar unicorn DISC profile for that role. And she can sell, close, confidently answering questions. And she just moves. She just can move. And the clients still feel heard, because people write us and they're like, your people are amazing. Your receptionist is amazing. And so reception is the one area that I tell people spend a lot of money on.
Yeah.
Always spend a lot of money. It's your first impression to the general public, and everybody wants to spend minimum wage on a kid out of college. Yeah. And I'm like, no. Pay an adult, and a real adult is worth that money.
Or have a phone tree.
Well, we have a phone tree, but you're losing people. You're losing
I know. That's what everybody wants, the minimum wage kid or the phone tree. You would be shocked. So even as much as we teach that inside of Great Legal Marketing, if you called our member firms today, you would be shocked at how many law firms are hearing that message and still have press 1 to speak to Tom.
Yeah, that's listen, anybody that's listening to this that's in the mastermind, one of the things I love about masterminds is, and let's talk about Great Legal Marketing. I was I sat in and had lunch with you guys at a mastermind. It works the same way as real high-end masterminds work, right? So when you have people that literally say, don't do that, just I'm going to say the word, you bleep it out, just fucking trust them. And there's a reason why, man. Like, I was the guy that was a phone tree guy, and then your company did the math with me. We confirmed everything they were saying, and I was like, this is a no-brainer. What am I doing? So I'm a fast implementer. If there are people in the mastermind, they're literally lighting money on fire if they don't listen to you on that. Like, send them this. Send them this.
So we've got a number of layers of membership. This is not our mastermind groups. Okay. I would be surprised if you got a voicemail or a phone tree in the mastermind group, but in the general membership. As we call around, we check in how things go and what can we help you with. Sometimes you do get the phone trees.
Right. You know what I get? You probably get these too from Google LSA. I get like almost a daily, see how you did on call responsiveness. I smile every morning because it's always 0 unanswered calls. At least I know, even after hours, I've got things coordinated. Now, that being said, have we had to meet with our after hours intake team and say, listen, you need to be more responsive because that client that didn't sign, that's a $20,000 legal fee gone. It's in the wind. If you guys don't want to do it anymore, let me know. I'll formulate a different plan. Right.
That's another industry that really got whacked during COVID, is the after hours answering. And it got really, really bad for a period of time with a company that we were with, where phone was ringing like 13 times before. And if you're not going back as a lawyer and listening to your phone calls and doing that QA, or you have somebody else in your office who's doing that for you, like, I promise you that your clients are having this bad experience also. But yeah, it got really hard to find people that could answer phones or were willing to answer phones on nights and weekends.
That's what COVID did, right? They're having staffing issues because is somebody psyched about answering a law firm's phones? I'll tell you who is psyched when you have a team that you're willing to pay for not only overtime for the weekend, you put them in a pool and you say, listen, it's this much for every retainer you snag as an incentive over the weekend after hours. They're excited. They don't have to have side hustles anymore because they can make a good amount of money. Just, if they have the free time to do it. So you put a bunch of people in a pool setting, and it works really well. So talk to me a little bit about what the work you're trying to do, especially with younger attorneys, about shifting the mindset of you need to be a business-minded marketer as well as a lawyer.
So listen, my basic, growing up, the jobs that I had when I was making as much money as everybody else who was around me, I worked at a pizza shop, I worked at a bagel bakery, I delivered newspapers. I hated all those jobs. And then I waited tables and I was like, man, if I sell more wine and turn tables faster and, sell more appetizers and I'm better at my job, I'm going to make more money. Right. And personal injury work is exactly the same way. Like if I can market to get larger cases and I have a better system of running those cases and I can do more per year and I can increase the value of the cases by one of two ways, better marketing or a better filter. So you're not taking the small dollar cases, man, you can make more money than anybody else. Now you have to be a good lawyer. Like it's the ante to play the game. We talked about that, those two circles of good marketer and good lawyer, and they don't always overlap. Like you don't want to be known as somebody who's a great marketer and a shitty lawyer. That reputation will only get you so many clients over so many years. And so they're both really important. And so if you're somebody who went to law school, but kind of has this entrepreneurial itch and is always thinking about how can I do it better, faster, stronger, and make more money, you have to be thinking about what are the levers that I can pull to do that. And so really what I do on my podcast and on LinkedIn is just try to talk to the version of myself that was like 3 or 10 years ago and give them that message, but also give them actionable ways to do it. So, we do, I'll share my entire chiropractor referral plan.
I love that. I listened to that episode on your podcast. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. And you could, and here's the thing is that most people won't actually do anything with it. So the bar is not very high to do more than most lawyers. And, a lot of my best ideas come from getting outside of our industry and meeting with other business people. And so actually that idea came from a book called 24/7 Mindset, which is a book written for the mortgage broker industry and is about how do you collect the names and the contact information of all of the other professionals that service your clients so that you can start making referrals to them. And so that within the mortgage broker industry, it's like you're looking at these papers, you see a CPA, might see a family lawyer, might see an estate planning lawyer's name, might have a bookkeeper, and then you have the realtor, right? And so every time I touch somebody who's got 3 of those 5, I'm suggesting 2 other professionals that they ought to be talking to. And that's how your network expands. And so I love going outside of the legal industry and figuring out like, what is something out in the broader world that smart business people are doing that lawyers are not? Because, lawyers, listen, most of us are too busy doing the work to focus on building the business. And so there's an iteration, like every year, if you can pick up one thing and add one thing, that's going to compound and compound and compound. And by the time that you're 10 or 15 years in, you're going to have a really good practice.
100%. That's one of the reasons why I chose EOS over all the other systems. I didn't want geared to law firms, right? Because I believe in what you're saying, and I do exactly the same thing. And I'll give you a payback thing that I do, right? So I attend conferences for chiropractors. There's 2 organizations in New York because they can't get along. And so I go to each one, or I send somebody from my office to each one. We do a table. And I was in a mastermind of all places. And they were like, you do trade shows? I go, yeah, we're selling shit, ain't we? Like we're selling stuff. So I'm in a room with 300 chiropractors. Some of my biggest cases have come from their front desk people. orthopedics that they've introduced to. If you look today at your state organizations, guaranteed there are chiropractic conferences.
Mm-hmm.
You take 3 days, you go to the conference, you have a table, I have handouts, giveaways, all the stuff that every other industry they do it. Lawyers too good. Lawyers too good. So it's only me, typically 2 or 3 other law firms that do it. And even if they are there, I don't care because I've been around so long that like we're way ahead of the curve on the marketing front. So I still think it's worth my time, my money, my effort, and my team. Jules went to the last one because I had a conflict with the head of my no-fault silo, right? I want their no-fault business. What's
Put a
that?
little candy on the table, they come right over.
Yeah, it's crazy that people aren't doing more of it. So I think that that's what allows us, like your firm and my firm, not too dissimilar in size, where how can you compete with these big monster firms? When you brought up that quote earlier, that's what John Morgan's famous for saying, right? Like, I'll tell you guys everything because you ain't going to do anything anyway, right? So
you mentioned LSAs earlier. We actually turned off LSAs and we don't do any PPC because I can't compete. I'm not interested in spending $10,000, $15,000 a month to acquire those cases. So exactly like you, like how can I go to chiropractors and speak, not to one client, but speak to one doctor who's got 25.
Exactly. Now we still do LSA, but what we monitor, and Jules does a meeting every Friday, is what is our cost per retainer, right? So my marketing company, I tell them, listen, if for anybody's listening, it's a marketing vendor. I don't care about anything other than signed retainers. So if you start talking, we ain't talking the same language unless you tell me the average cost per retainer, right? So Jules watches that with my intake person. We calculate our LSA spend weekly. And I will tell you that what you just said about LSA is what somebody said at the most recent conference we went to, who's a LSA master. He said it's gonna go the way of PPC because it's gonna not make sense at some point for you to be signing auto cases at $5,000 a case. You're gonna not be in LSA anymore. So then Google will have to invent some other new shiny contraption to catch that dollar, that advertising dollar. But yeah, I'm trying to balance it with a real focus on client service and doing the things where there is no competition in that fishing hole. I want to go where the fish are, where nobody else knows about it, right? Like you said, which is what I loved about that podcast you did. It was like a 15-minute podcast to listen to while I was working out.
Yeah.
You went exactly like I do the same analysis, and I love that because Craig Goldenfarb has also done this, where he said, go upstream. Don't just look at, I'm chasing the car accident case. Go after the doctor, and there's 10 of those doctors. That's how my no-fault silo got built. My no-fault collection silo. Is Virginia a no-fault state?
No.
Okay.
No, so we don't have that. We don't have that. Yeah, it's a brilliant business model that you built up there, and you can't deploy it in Virginia, or else I would do it with you.
Yeah, man. It would be awesome. And Florida had it. I was looking at it with Craig Goldenfarb, and then Florida passed tort reform, and basically no-fault collections went out the window. So I want to be respectful of your time. So I just want to go to are there practical steps that a lawyer can make to their practice to enhance client service? Just give some takeaways for people listening to this, like what, empathy-driven customer service.
Whew, so the easy one is call your clients.
Oh boy, that's a good one.
Easy.
Yeah, I mean that's because listen, what is the most common complaint about lawyers is they don't call me. Right? The communication sucks. The case took longer than I thought it would. And then there's usually the third one I think is like expectation mismatch between what we thought was going to happen and then what the actual result is. And so if you can focus on narrowing those gaps, the primary thing, and it's hard to get younger people to do this, like pick up the phone.
I know.
Don't send an email.
Jules, write that down. Write that down, Juliet.
Don't send a text.
I know.
Pick up the phone.
Yeah.
I think Marco Brown does this really well. He's that rule where every Friday he has the lawyers call all of the clients, right?
Yes.
And just check in. And even when there's not an update. So, one of the things that comes up in our little case peer tickler is every 30 days you have to have some kind of update. Even if nothing has gone on, hey, I just want you to know we didn't forget about you, right? We're waiting
Right.
for this to happen over here. And as soon as it does, we're moving you on to the next step. So picking up the phone is, I think, an important one. Expectation setting is really important. And in injury cases, clients want to know that way too early, right? And what's my case worth? Dude, it's the first time I've ever talked to you. I have no idea what your case is worth.
Right.
But one of the things that we do is we send a written evaluation to the client before the demand goes to the insurance companies. Hey, here's what I think it is. Just so you know, it's not like the insurance company offered you $25,000 and I think that's pretty good. Let's see if we can settle for 27.
Right.
Let me draw the circle first and see if they hit the target or not. So client expectations, communication. Yeah, I think those are the two big ones.
Listen, you are speaking my language. I will tell you, just to back that up again, for anybody who's listening to this, hopefully they're in your masterminds, because I stumbled upon this thing that I did out of necessity. I had a lawyer leave. He was a 20-year litigation attorney, never tried cases, but he left, and I started auditing files monthly. And man, when you get back in your files, you go, oh, I'm glad I went back into this file. I found a lot of 7-figure files. So then I created a critical case unit. I had about 75 files, critical case. I had been marketing. I shifted all my marketing to premises liability. We're bringing the bell on premises cases now. And so I form a critical case unit, put my top 75 files in there, and I hire a trial lawyer, like a real trial lawyer, right? So I had two things I could have done. Not learn from my past mistakes and just reassign the files and not worry about the client. Or I sat down and I said, if I was the client with this big case, what would I want? I literally am still calling all 75 clients. I've been calling 1 to 2 every time on my way home from work. It takes me about an hour to get home because of traffic in Long Island. I will tell you, it has been the best thing I could ever do. I'm not delegating those calls. I'm making them myself. And I'm like, look, here's why I'm reassigning your file. My most complex, most valuable, most extensive litigation files are going to be assigned to the trial lawyer with 40 years of experience and 100 verdicts under his belt. And this is his paralegal. It seems like a lot of change. What are your thoughts? And man, dude, the response has been overwhelming. Not only are they thrilled to hear from the guy whose name is on the door, and what is it really taking me? A half an hour, I do 2 calls, clients are thrilled. So in a month, I'll be through all my critical case reassignments, right?
Well, because how do most firms handle that? Like at the most, it's a letter or an email saying, hey, I'm the new person on your file. At worst, they call looking for Steve, and Steve left 3 months ago.
Yes.
And the receptionist goes, he doesn't work here anymore.
Yeah.
Let me look in the system and figure out who's supposed to be handling your case.
And I learned that lesson the hard way. That's why I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this, and I think it's a mindset thing too. Like a lot of attorneys don't respect their clients. I think a lot of personal injury attorneys, especially because they're overworked, they're overstressed. They don't have business and staffing systems like our businesses have. And but that is the unique opportunity. I think that what you said is it's crazy that something so basic as pick up the phone.
I love that you said that, because I think that's, the temptation with AI and automation is to AI and automate and offshore all of this stuff. And the doing of the work. Yes, absolutely. But what your business is built on is your relationship with people. Yeah. And so keeping that first and foremost, and you're doing a smart thing by making you the one that calls.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, Tom is still your lawyer. I just have this guy doing the work. I hope people, if they've made it this far in the podcast, pick up the phone, because that connection is what most businesses are failing at these days.
Yeah. And it's very sticky because these clients, when I'm hanging up the phone, they're like, thank you so much. And I'm going to do another thing that I'll give you another thing that I totally went contrarian on. When I came up through the coaching mastermind space, they were like, never give out your cell phone number. I give my cell phone number out to everybody. And I tell them, You text me 911, I will step out of any room I am in. If you abuse it and it's not really 911, I'm going to block you. You know how many people use it? None. Do you know what it says that people have the named attorney? They have my cell phone number. Anything going wrong with that case, text me. I will call you. I will call you. It's very rare that I'm getting those texts. It's very rare that I'm getting those calls. And I'm not too good to say I should be delegating this. Like, it doesn't work. You can't delegate caring. You cannot delegate caring. And man, that's the message that you have been beating as a drum of, we can't compete on the numbers but you can compete on caring, because the big firms can't. They just can't. They got to outsource everything. They got to delegate it down. Right. So yeah, man, listen, as I get to know you, I like you more and more. And I'm like, he's going to make me sign up for one of these masterminds now. So what's next for you in Great Legal Marketing?
So next thing that we're doing is called the GLM Bootcamp. It's a 25-person max, 25 law firm max event. It's going to be in my office in Fairfax, Virginia. It is only for lawyers who are still trying to break the $1 million mark. We're going to break down all of the ways to do that without a significant marketing spend by doing all the things we talked about in this podcast. So if you're doing less than $1 million in revenue, check out glmbootcamp.com. And then after that, we're doing the summit in October in Arizona. That's at glmsummit.com. It's a much bigger event. It's a 3-ring circus.
Yeah.
And it's
awesome, though. It's awesome. It is great. Yeah, it's awesome.
I'll be sure to link both of those
in the
show notes below.
Yeah, and for anybody that's listening, please, man, if you want to get real value, Brian's LinkedIn changed my game, and I've been in the game a minute, right? And so if I can learn from Brian and his dad, anybody can, right? Like, because you guys have a wealth of knowledge, you put out a wealth of value, like with no ask on that stuff, right? And you definitely, I've been to your summit. It's a game changer, man. It's good stuff. It's really good stuff. So Brian, thanks for coming on, man. You, as always, you bring value wherever you're talking. So I really appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you having me. I love the energy. This is good. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah, man. Yes.